Happy Easter, boys and girls! Plotline to today's episode. SpongeBob accidentally breaks his spatula in half when cooking a monster Krabby Patty. And it gets replaced with Le Spatula, which turns out to be a big jerk. Even the Great Prince of the Forest would behave better than that, in my opinion. So for what I think of this episode, as an autistic kid, when I first saw it, I could understand SpongeBob because there are lots of reasons that don't make sense for why kids or young adults cry. The episode starts out, and get ready for this. One of the two so-called infamous writers, sorry Casey Alexander. Anyway, one of them, being dubbed Zeus Cervas, worked with Erik C. Wiese on this one. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong. They both did the writing and the storyboard directing on this one. The animation was all thanks to Andrew Overtomb from Squid's Day Off. And the TV series is called SpongeBob SquarePants since '99. So anyway, it starts off as a normal day at the Krusty Krab, where a customer goes, "One monster Krabby Patty, please." And Squidward says, "Well, nobody's ordered a monster patty in ages." Then he repeats the order to SpongeBob, who gasps in shock and says, "Wait a minute, monster Krabby Patty?" And then it passes down to Mr. Krabs, the boss, who says, "Monster Krabby Patty?" And then customers go, "Monster Krabby Patty?" And then a set of live action hands comes in and drops the meat onto the grill. And then SpongeBob says, and I'm not kidding, "Oh dear Neptune." And then, here's what he called his spatula. Spat. And then SpongeBob would go, "Alrighty, buddy, we can do this. 1, 2, 3, flip." And what happens next? Let me tell ya. Bambi would be so happy not to be caught up in it. Lucky for him, am I right? Please leave a comment down below if you agree. Anyway, he throws this big, massive tantrum, and Squidward gives him a look that's like, "Really?" And then to customers, then a guy in a bathroom stall, and police officers, then to a baby who also goes, "Wah, wah," to himself in the mirror, and then to a receptionist or therapist, and then he stops crying long enough for the therapist to say, go on. And then he continues his crying, and then this is the only part we see of Patrick Star, who's getting his own spin-off show in July this year. He's just walking up to the top of a rock, then all of a sudden he cries too. I gotta say, Bill Fagerbakke, you had the easiest role in that episode. And Tom Kenny, props to you for thinking of something that made your heart break the most. That took guts. Anyway, Mr. Krabs says, "Well, we better get back to work." And then SpongeBob says, "But how can I go back to work without spat?" Let me tell ya, Bambi and his father would feel SpongeBob's pain. Then Mr. Krabs goes, and I'm not joking, "Use another spatula." And then SpongeBob says, "There is only one spatula for me, and that is spat. Spat, wait up, cut to the hospital, where we see what looks like spat in 2 pieces connected to something that makes your heart come back together. Or something like that. Then there's a montage of the spatula, quote, kissing SpongeBob's cheek. Then SpongeBob just flips himself over while getting a tan. Then SpongeBob has an itch on his back and he can't reach it. So he uses his spatula to... And he goes, oh, Then he's playing ping pong with it. And he gets all the balls. The ping pong ones, mind you. This is a kid's channel, you know. Then he's also using it to reach under the sofa for his remote control. And the track that plays during all that is 60s Happy Times. Then he's also fighting a pirate, which Treasure, Ariel's cat, yes, I'm mentioning Disney in a Nicktoon review, would totally be into. Then he uses his spatula like one of those things, catches the sword, and it flings the pirate over the edge of a cliff. If you get any Bambi and the Great Prince vibes from all that, please comment below. And then here comes a knock doctor who's searching for a role, who says, if I were you, I would give serious consideration to a replacement spatula. And then he tells SpongeBob to get some bed rest, and that the real doctors will try to do everything they can. Then SpongeBob kisses his spatula, au revoir, which is French for goodbye. And then he goes, how can anything ever replace... Hey, look at that! That didn't take much, did it, Sponge Boy, my Bob? What I just did there was a reference to episode 8B, Squeaky Boots. And that is Le Spatula. He's thinking, oh, those lines, so sleek. And then he shakes his head and thinks, what the barnacle am I talking about? I don't need this. Then all of a sudden he's in there without using the door saying, maybe I do need this. Then, right when he goes to touch it, a hand slaps him away. Then goes, no touchy the little spatula. It's very, very expensive. If the Great Prince was there, and I am not joking, he would say, well then. And then SpongeBob says, well, I have some loose change in my pocket. Will this cover it? Then the salesman does some calculations and he goes, no. Then SpongeBob breaks, and I'm not joking, all 5 of his piggy banks. Going, now? And the salesman says, no. Then he unveils Gary's shell. And then there's a diamond under it. And he still can't buy the spatula. Then he ends up selling his pineapple home. And then he says, that's everything I have. Now can I buy a spatula? And then the man thinks for a minute and says, nice outfit. That's pretty much how SpongeBob Nudie Pants is for the rest of the episode. Got that off of watching episode 20A, Hooky. I'm sorry if you don't approve of this, viewers. And then, as he walks by, one fish covers her child's eyes. And then he goes up to a granny saying, hey granny, what's shaking? And then he adds, breezy today. And then Squidward says, "Nice outfit, SpongeBob." Spot on acting, Rodger Bumpass. Excellent. And then SpongeBob says, "Worth every penny, Squidward." And then when Mr. Krabs wants to know, quote, what all the lollygagging is about, Squidward says, "Get a load of SpongeBob." And then Mr. Krabs says, "Okay, what's going on here? Oh, don't you have any shame, boy?" And then SpongeBob says, "All my shame went in here, Mr. Krabs." And then Mr. Krabs misreads the spatula. And then goes, "What in blazes is that?" And then SpongeBob says, "Oh, just the answer to our little production dilemma." And then Mr. Krabs wants to go at it. And then SpongeBob says, "This is a high-tech piece of engineering that takes quality time to master." And then Mr. Krabs says, "Well, I expect you to make Krabby Patties twice as fast." And then SpongeBob says, "Well, I'm not sure that'll be a problem, Mr. Krabs. In fact," and then the spatula has a voice saying, "Le Spatula 3000 at your service." And then Mr. Krabs says, "Let's see that thing impress me even more by bringing in more customers and more money in me pocket." And then SpongeBob will say, "Ready to show him, buddy?" And then the spatula just retracts its everything, including the flipping service. And then SpongeBob says, "Oh, it's okay. No need to be shy. It's always tough the first day on the job." And then he gets an order for 1 Krabby Patty. And then SpongeBob tries to flip it, but the spatula keeps avoiding the patty. And then SpongeBob says, "Spat, is there something the matter, pal?" And then the spatula says, "I would not dare touch such slop as this. How do you say, Krabby Patty?" And that he is, quote, "designed for the most exquisite, exclusive cuisine. No less!" And then SpongeBob says, "Boop, boop, 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 boop. But I thought we were friends." And then, if the Great Prince was down there, yes, I'm mentioning Disney characters, he would say, "So you do not want to be friends with SpongeBob?" And then the spatula would say, "Friends with him? Ha! Are the bunch of us even in the same social class?" That's right, the spatula is really a bigger jerk than the Great Prince was when he scolded Bambi. I am not joking either. And then SpongeBob said, "I gave up everything for you. We had something." And then suddenly the spatula has a fist. And SpongeBob gets socked in the face. Luckily he's a sponge. And then the spatula says, "Have fun labeling in your greasy spoon." And then Mr. Krabs says, "What happened?" And SpongeBob says, "The spatula's gone, Mr. Krabs. I had a spatula once. An actual spatula. One that stood by me through thick and thin. Through grease and gristle. And I betrayed his allegiance like a fool." And then the Great Prince, if he was down there again, I know it's not possible, but if he was, he'd say, "Do I feel your pain, SpongeBob? Do I ever feel it? I had betrayed Bambi once." And then we get a little montage of Bambi's, quote, emotional betrayal when he was sent to live with Mina. And then the Great Prince would say, "It was horrible at the end." But that's my version of it. And then SpongeBob would realize, and I quote, "The true measure of a good spatula is by his actions, not by some fancy chrome and buttons. I need to find my own spatula." And then Mr. Krabs says, "Go before I lose all the customers." And then Squidward says, "What happened?" In a deleted scene. In said deleted scene, Mr. Krabs says, "I don't know." And then SpongeBob would be all like, "Spatula?" But first, the heart monitor would have a log, beep. Sorry if that's annoying. But unfortunately, that signifies that something happened to someone, which exactly happened to Bambi's late mother. Anyway, SpongeBob goes, "Spatula? It can't be true. Oh, it's too late." And then the not doctor would say, "I hate to tell you this, SpongeBob." And then SpongeBob would be all like, "I'm aware. He's moved on to the big kitchen jar in the sea. He's gone." And then the not doctor says, "Oh no, little buddy. I didn't get the acting part." "Really not, doctor?" At a time like this, then SpongeBob says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Then goes back to crying. But then here comes the plot twist. The not doctor says, "Your buddy is all patched up in the infirmary." And then SpongeBob says, "Spatula! Oh, buddy! Oh, I'm so glad you're better." Pause, please. Then the spatula just turns his wheelchair away, as if it's his own person. So it's like SpongeBob had found his plank over time. I'm talking plank as in Ed, Ed, and Eddie, where Johnny 2x4 talks with a wooden plank named Plank, which makes sense. Anyway, SpongeBob says, "Spatula, I didn't mean to betray you. Mr. Krabs needed a replacement. Krabby Patties can't flip themselves, you know." And then he sobs, "It was a moment of weakness." And then he goes, "Oh, what did I do? What did I do?" As a reference to Jonah, a VeggieTales movie. Then SpongeBob breaks the fourth wall by floating up as if he's narrating the story and looks at us and says, "All that glitters is not gold." I think he should have added, "is not gold." Well, the people who worked on this episode should have added that to the end of the title. Either way, when you hear that word, you're like, roll commercials. And then the spatula decides to leave SpongeBob to cry. And then SpongeBob says, "Até logo, melhor amigo," which is Portuguese for "goodbye, best friend." And then he slithers like a snail in his own tears back to the Krusty Krab, which Double D calls lamentation. And then SpongeBob concludes, "I'll never find another spatula like him again." Then suddenly Spat's flipping the patties by himself, as if he forgave SpongeBob for his actions. And then SpongeBob's elated and says, "Oh, Spat, now that we're together again, nothing will ever separate us." And then Squidward goes, "One monster Krabby Patty." And then the same live action hands drop the meat on there. And then SpongeBob says, "Okay, buddy. Ready? 1, 2, 3, flip." But this time his arms pop off. The spatula doesn't break this time, which is a good time for him. And then he just ends the episode off with laughing it off. Now, before we get into final thoughts, here's what I'd like to do. If you've seen some other guy review this and give these high goods or low bads, it's like said guy said, when it's high good, it's a solid. But I'm gonna call low bad, low sad. When it's low sad, it's not to anyone's liking. Now, team at Nickelodeon, congratulations on putting effort into teaching a lesson to us kids about accepting friendship. That took heart. So, in my opinion, and I'm sorry to those who don't like the episode, but on the bright side, that 60s Happy Time and Stack of Lays were good music selections. So, for where this is going, neutral okay. Between high good and low sad. It's not that great of an episode, but it's not terrible either. In my opinion, I think fans should be writing something called All That Second Glitters. Bambi, the Red-Nosed Discount, which I will talk about in another review. I'll talk about it in a Blue Day for Bambi review. But all in all, not too bad of an episode, not too good either. I'm not saying that fans aren't entitled to their thoughts on this episode, but I've heard about it on SpongeBob, as the wiki's called. And for one reason it's, quote, infamous, is SpongeBob torture. And you can't have every character you love going without a little torture. I'm sorry if that's offensive. I just have my own thoughts, viewers. So anyway, to those who are watching and are not happy, I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart. Well, that's it with that, and I'll see you next time for a dreaded day without tears.